Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast, proudly presents new presenter Dom McChesney interviewing Broadway legend Ron Husmann. You're in for a treat.
Hi, my name is Dom McChesney. In June of last year, I was performing at the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and through this I was introduced to Ron Husmann. Ron Husmann was in the original productions of Fiorello, Tenderloin, for which he received a Tony nomination, All-American, and Lovely Ladies, Kind Gentlemen, as well as a host of other shows on Broadway and all over the States. He has been the leading man opposite the likes of Ethel Merman, Debbie Reynolds, Bernadette Peters, Juliet Prowse, Shirley Jones, and Marni Nixon. He has worked with Howard Keel, George Abbott, Bach and Harnick, Charles Strauss, Hal Prince, the list goes on and on. A few years back, Ron was forced into retiring from the stage due to developing multiple sclerosis, and you will hear the effect that this has had on his voice in the interview. What was quite spectacular, though, was that as we chatted, his sheer passion for theatre and performance and his own career freed up his voice, and he was a joy to listen to, and I could have happily stayed there all day hearing about his wonderful experiences. I do hope you enjoy this interview with a true star of the golden age of Broadway, Mr. Ron Husmann.
Musical Talk.
Mr. Husmann, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. This is an absolute honour. I'll just tell you a little bit how I actually first came across your work. Was that I grew up in England in a very small farming community and didn't really have, although I was brought up in musicals and Gilbert and Sullivan mostly. When I was about 15, my brother bought me, because he thought I might like it, a recording of Tenderloin. And I immediately fell in love with what I think is one of the most wonderful scores in Broadway musical theatre, which we'll get to. But I was immediately enamored. So when Marcy, our mutual friend, told me that she knew you, well, I got very excited. So I'm very, very honoured to have this opportunity to talk to you about your career. So what I thought we'd do is I have some guidelines, but we would just chat and just see how it goes.
As a matter of fact, the fact that it was in London, you have to excuse my voice because the reason I'm not performing anymore is that I have multiple sclerosis. And I know that you're familiar with that in London or in England because there's more cases in the farther north you go, and especially in England. The Orkney Islands has 1 in every 300 people has MS. As you go farther north in the United States, I'm from northern Illinois, Rockford, right on the border with Wisconsin, so once you get into Wisconsin, you get more, and then if you get into Canada, it's just loaded with multiple sclerosis. It has something to do with climate. We don't know, but there's very little knowledge out there. So my voice sounds pinched, and sometimes I lose a word, and I may have to shut up for a little bit sometime and let you say something while I can get my voice back. But
yes, certainly.
It struck my voice suddenly, and within a month I had practically no voice, and I had contracts lined up for shows and things that I tried to perform. It was just embarrassing because I couldn't even sing with a microphone. I finally had to stop. And I had never prepared for anything else in my life. That was all I was planning to do. And
yes.
It was quite a difficult period. It took me about 2.5 years before I got a job as a teacher at Cal State L.A.
Yes.
That's where I met Marcy, and she was one of my students there.
Yes,
so,
of course. You trained at Northwestern University.
Yeah.
And was it always your intention to go into theatre?
Yes. Yeah, I don't ever remember a time when I wasn't going to be an actor. I mean, most actors are like that.
Yes.
You're born into it. I don't know. It's a disease you get very early, I think. You know? But I do not remember a time. And I was surprised when I got into 7th grade and they had a class that everybody had to take for vocation guidance, vocational guidance.
Yes, yes.
And there were kids in my class who didn't know what they wanted to be. And I thought that was the strangest thing in the world.
I had the same experience in England.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean,
So-
if you don't know what you want to be, by the time you're in 7th grade, goodness,
Yes.
what a strange thing. But I discovered that's the norm, and we're not normal, This
Yeah.
is not a normal thing. But no, I always wanted to be an actor, and I was seeing movies mainly, but they were movies about Broadway, That's
Right. Yes. Yes.
and so Broadway was always my goal. And I was really lucky in that I still think the best training is for the theater. I mean, whether it's London or New York, training for Broadway is a way to, it's a discipline that you learn, and it's more demanding, but it also turns out better actors and people who can sustain 2.5 hours on a stage without a stop and, well, let's do that over or something like that.
Yes.
And I found working with movie stars, some of them were good, but a lot of them were not as disciplined. We're never in the same place at the same time, and I mean.
So you noticed a big difference between,
yeah,
and is
yeah.
that true for movie stars who did musicals?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, sorry, I know that's a strange question, but
they don't have that. They just don't have that discipline, to
Right.
realize that they have to learn it right then and there, and it has to stick.
yes,
It has to stay, and then you grow every performance. I never found a long run difficult. I thought that was the most exciting thing in the world, because first of all, to get up every morning and know that you're going to the theater that night is just kind of like the best thing that could happen.
yeah, yes, I agree. Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
if you don't, when a show closes, it's so depressing you can hardly stand it. Like, what do you do that first night you're home and you have to look at television or something and try and get through that first night? It's very hard. you know.
Yes. I would like to talk about how you got into
Okay.
your first show.
Well,
Your Broadway debut was.
First of all, we had a lot of practice in high school. Both my wife and I. My wife's from Tulsa, and she had her own television show where it was like a 15-minute show back in the 50s where she sang. And so she got out of school a little bit early. And half an hour show, sorry. Yeah,
we got that one corrected.
yeah,
that
that's
one's
correct. And she would go and sing and decide what has to be rehearsed for the next day or whatever. And so she had an ideal high school thing, and then I did too, because I had really great choral background and theater background. I had wonderful teachers, and we were doing major things that other high schools weren't doing. I tried out auditioned for and won all kinds of shows because I could always sing, and I could always sing better than anybody else, and so I always won.
That's always nice.
It's just
That's
simple,
Yes.
And at one point in high school, we did The Flying Dutchman my freshman year, my sophomore year, because we had three years in high school. Then we did Sweethearts, which was Victor Herbert.
Yes.
And then we did Brigadoon.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so I did all the leads in those. And then I won all these contests and got some money together. And
Okay.
and so then I went to Northwestern, and that's where Patsy and I met our freshman year. And we did all the shows there, and we had a musical group called Party of Six. It was like 6 of us and then 3 piano, bass, and drums. And we would go around and do performances for ladies' clubs and whatever and get paid, $10 a show or something, But that was a lot for while you were in college.
Yes, completely.
So
yes.
we did that, and then, the first summer we both did summer stock. Patsy and I were never together. She would always go to Kansas City to do summer stock, and I would go to Highland Park, and then whatever. Finally on the Party of Six, this little entertainment thing, we sold to the USO, and so they sent us to the Far East one summer.
Yes.
So we had a great time. We went to Japan, went to Hawaii, Japan, Korea, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, Taiwan, Philippines, and then I said Guam, and then back to Hawaii for a month. So
Wow.
it was a great trip.
Wonderful.
And then our senior year, I took my winter quarter off, and we went to Europe
Right.
for the USO, and so we performed everywhere. We didn't get to England on that trip, but we played all over Germany and France, and that was when Berlin was still behind the Berlin Wall, and we managed to get there, and we had great fun. But we performed sometimes 3 a day out of a helicopter,
Right, yes.
And
Yeah.
that was fun, And then when it came time for graduation, we didn't stick around because we both had a job, and this time we decided we were going to work together this summer.
Right.
And so that was in '59. We went to Wallingford, Connecticut, and we played summer stock there, and they had 3 theaters: Wallingford, Connecticut, Warwick, Rhode Island, and Framingham, Massachusetts. And it was a touring company. They bring in a star, and then we were the chorus.
Right.
And
I'm just going to explain. I'm sure that most people know, but just in case there is anyone listening who doesn't know, summer stock is
1 week.
It's 1 week, or or it can be like one.
Well, or it could be 3, like we had, because we had 3 theaters.
3 right. Yeah, summer stock is like a rep. Mostly musicals.
Yeah, all
musicals. There's a very good one on Cape Cod one I actually did, called the College Light Opera Company, where you do 8 musicals in 12 weeks,
Right.
which is unbelievable. And it's a fantastic experience. We don't really have it in England, and I've always been astounded why we don't.
Yeah.
It's because
It's great fun.
It's
Well,
great
we don't
fun.
have it much
So-
anymore here either. It
Yeah.
was great training. I mean, I'll never forget the first summer when I was at Highland Park in Chicago. I stayed at our fraternity house in Evanston, where Northwestern is. We did 7 performances a week. We never had a night off.
Yes.
So what you would do on Sunday night, you'd close the show at 11:30. You had a half-hour break, and then you'd take all your clothes and get them lined up and take them into the costume place and leave those and pick up your bundle of clothes for the next show. And then at 1:30, you had a call, and you were on stage, and you did the dress rehearsal because they had to do it at night so they could set the lights.
Right, of course, yes.
So we'd work until 4:30 in the morning, and then we were sent home, and we had a 12-hour break. We had to be back if we got out at 4:30, we had to be back at 4:30 in the afternoon of the opening on Monday. Wow. And sometimes we wouldn't have the finale staged or the bows or whatever, and we were still doing that,
Yeah.
and they would be bringing, the star would be there, and we'd run through the show, and you'd get that show open, and then the next day you had the day off, but you had to come in at night and do the show.
Yes, yes.
So you never had a time off, not really. And but while we were in stock in Connecticut, we saw where in Variety that Hal Prince and Jerry Bach and Sheldon Harnick were opening a new show called Fiorello. We had no idea what a Fiorello was, but it was a Broadway show, and it was opening in September. So my fiance then and myself, and 2 others, drove in, and it was the girls' day to audition, and so I'm sitting at Howard Johnson's on Times Square waiting for the girls' audition, and they said I could come in and audition when the girls were finished, but they thought it would be at least 2 or 3 hours because they had lines down the road, forever.
Yes.
Well, after about an hour and a half, I got so antsy, and I thought, well, I better go check. So I went over to the back of the Lyceum Theater, which is on the east side of Times Square, and they were coming out. Here was Ruth Mitchell and Hal Prince and George Abbott and Jerry Bach and Sheldon Harnick and all his. They were closing up and locking the door. They were done, and I said, "Wait! You said 3 or 4 hours, and you promised okay." And George Abbott said, "Oh yeah, well let's let him sing anyway." So they all walked back in and sat down, and they turned on the lights again, and I sang 8 bars of Some Enchanted Evening. And George Abbott said, "It's fine. Give him a card."
Oh, fantastic!
And that's the only audition I did. I mean, I had to occasionally audition to see if I was old enough to stand next to somebody or whatever. I lost She Loves Me because I couldn't play opposite Barbara Cook. She was just that much older than me that I looked terribly young for my age.
Right.
And so I didn't get that. which made me furious.
And it's a beautiful show. She Loves Me. Of course, it was revived.
And I would have been perfect for it.
Yes, you would have been.
But anyway.
But so that was the only audition you ever did, and it was, and you sang
while
8 bars for George Abbott.
While I was in rehearsal, Eric Shepard was sending me out. This is MCA was sending me out to audition. He sent me to Frank Lesser to see me for Green Willow.
Yes.
And Frank Lesser heard me sing, and he said, "What's your deal with Fiorello?" And I said, "Well, I'm in it," but he said, "Well, I'd like to sign you for Green Willow."
Right.
And he said, "But I have Tony Perkins signed, but he's doing a show called Psycho, and we don't know if he's going to finish it in time." And he said, "So if he doesn't finish it in time, you'll star in it. Otherwise, you'll be the understudy." And so then I went back and I told Hal Prince, and Hal said, "Well, what's your deal with him?" He said, "'Cause we'd like to star you in Tenderloin next year." So we had already talked about this. This was during rehearsal.
Yes.
I hadn't even.
This was during rehearsals of Fiorello.
Fiorello. We hadn't even.
You hadn't even opened.
Opened yet. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And so I had 3 Broadway shows in my pocket by September 1st.
Did you do Green Willow? No, because Tony Perkins.
What happened was Psycho got finished.
And then he went into Green Willow.
And Hal Prince said, "You don't really want to go and understudy for a half a year and then leave it and come to Tenderloin." I said, "No, I'd rather stay here." So we got married with the cast of Fiorello at our wedding, and that was it. We stayed there until June, and then we took 2 months off and came out to California where Patsy's folks lived and toured around a bit, and then got back, and she was in the show, too. She was in Fiorello. She understudied Eileen Rogers.
How fantastic.
And went on for her several times. And I was one of the poker players in Fiorello.
Oh, right, yes, politics and poker.
So if people don't know what a Fiorello is, it's Fiorello LaGuardia. And we always said the show would have been it was a big hit. It won the Pulitzer Prize and it won the Drama Critics Award on the Tony and everything. But nobody knew what a Fiorello was because it's a strange title. And if they'd called it LaGuardia, everybody would have known who it was about.
Yes.
Mayor LaGuardia. And, but New Yorkers knew him as Fiorello, which was his first name, which meant little flower.
Right. I see. So that's why they stuck
That's why they took that title. And I told Hal Prince, I said, you'd be running today if you had made that a title. We even had a title song that the show ended with. The name's LaGuardia, Laguardia,
Yeah.
And so they even had the song in there, a title song.
That's funny. Well, I was listening recently. I don't know if you've ever heard it. There's a wonderful series called Lyrics and Lyricists.
Oh yeah.
And
I sang in it many times.
Oh right. Well, my 2 favourite ones are An Evening with Sheldon Harnick and An Evening with Alan J. Lerner. It's interesting how they, more than even people like the Johnny Mercer and Sammy Kahn one, which just seem a little bit overindulgent to me. I mean, they're geniuses and lyric gods, but Jerry Bock and certainly Alan J. Lerner, they really come across and they talk about their craft of lyric writing. And Sheldon Harnick, sorry, not Jerry Bock, Sheldon Harnick, for me, one of the great lyricists who's ever existed.
The score of Tenderloin really shows that. The score of Fiorello does too.
Oh, yes.
But the score of Tenderloin is so brilliant. Artificial Flowers is a brilliant song.
It is,
and Picture of Happiness, you couldn't ask for anything better.
For the leading man to have those two, because they contrast so beautifully. We
couldn't play it on the radio at the time because they were too dirty.
Oh, that's... Picture of Happiness was considered.
This is about a prostitute,
But it was considered dirty.
It was considered way too dirty. Look at what's on, it's ridiculous. But it didn't get any play. And it's the only show that Hal and George Abbott and Jerry and Sheldon never mentioned in their bios.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, because it was their only big flop. It only lasted a season on Broadway.
Which is astounding because I think it's got the most... from the moment of the overture starting, and they did a revival concert.
Young Johnny,
Yeah, all the songs are just... and I recommend anyone who doesn't know it to get it because it is just phenomenal. But they did a recent revival recording with David Ogden Stiers playing Reverend Brock. But again, that I
had Maurice Evans, which you all know.
Yes,
and
of course.
He was a very close friend of ours. We used to go to his house in Connecticut for holidays, and things like. And he remained a friend all of his life,
He comes across. I mean, obviously, I have no idea what he was like personally, but he comes across on the recording as a very nice chap. So.
He was terrific, He was, and it was so amazing. Oh, funny story. I was 22. And 23 by the time I did Tenderloin, and everybody knew I was, absolutely green behind the ears, and I was so impressed with all these big stars in the audience, and the kids were always playing tricks on me, knocking at the door and saying they were somebody big, Betty Grable was here,
okay,
whatever, right. And so I'm sitting there one day in a pair of jockey shorts with a little towel over me with makeup all over my face. I mean, I'm wiping off the makeup. I've got cold cream on,
Yes.
I'm looking at that. And they knock on the door, and I said, who is it? He said, it's Noel Coward and Edna Ferber. And I said, oh, come on in. And they opened the door, and it's Noel Coward and Edna Ferber. And I'm going, just a minute, I'll be right with you.
That's wonderful.
I mean, really, you just... And it was funny. We had a great time. And what really spoiled us was the first two shows that we did were with Hal Prince and George Abbott and Bach and Harnick. And all these people were real theater people.
Oh yes.
They knew their craft and they did it. And George Abbott would say, okay, rehearsal is at 10 tomorrow, 10 to 6. And sure enough, we would start at 10. Break for lunch, we'd be back, we'd work until 6, and that would be it. And the show was always ready, and you got to New Haven, and the show opened. You opened on time, and the show was ready, and the sets worked, and everything was just as it ought to be. And Ruth Mitchell was a terrific stage manager. She could boss those tough stagehands around like nobody you ever saw, and they were scared to death of her. But she got the show on, always. After that, I got into some shows where I didn't have a good stage manager and I didn't have disciplined people in charge. And, oh, gosh, I didn't know what to expect. I've had sets fall over on me on opening night.
Yes. I just want to go back to George Abbott because he's one of those people that is just...
But
he seemed to have been around forever.
He was forever. He lived to be 101, And he was really the most organized and unemotional kind of person. He didn't throw tantrums. He didn't throw anything,
Right.
I mean, he was just like, it was a really good job,
right.
And he did his job well. And he knew what made comedy work.
Right.
So he knew where to put you and how to make it work, and he could rewrite a scene, except one thing we had with Morris Evans, between Morris and myself, in the second act, you always have the turning point where the climax of the show, where you find out that this is this and that's that, and here's where it's going, and it's over,
Yes.
And that scene could not be written because Morris Evans was the star above the title, and I was below the title in the supporting role. However, I was the protagonist of the show, so the show was about me.
Yes.
Morris Evans was playing actually a supporting role, and when we took it to Las Vegas, they cut his role down to nothing, just a walk-on kind of a thing.
You're kidding,
it wasn't
really?
necessary because he was the same as the police captain. The police chief was crooked, and Morris Evans was trying to get the dirt on the whorehouses that were operating out in the open, and the mayor and everybody else in town were allowing. And so you had all these people, and I was the reporter for the Tatler, which was the Police Gazette.
That's right.
And I was playing both sides against the middle.
Yeah.
And so I'd go back and forth, and I'd tell the minister what the police were going to do, and then I'd tell the police what the minister was going to do, and I made money on the side. And finally it comes down to where...
Who are you going to choose?
Okay, Tommy, what's it going to be? Me or him or whatever, you know? And so they tried to rewrite that so it could be Morris Evans' decision. Well, you can't do that. It can't work.
That seems bizarre.
There is no way to change the plot. You can't.
Yes.
He doesn't have that decision to make.
And George Abbott was one of the people who had to try and do this.
We did that scene. I think we wrote 15 versions of that scene.
Wow.
I always got the last copy. This was when they typed out things. You didn't have computers in there.
Yeah.
And I got the little thin, paper-thin last sheet of the carbon copies, and I could hardly read it. It was just insane because they would just basically take the words and change them around, and finally it never would work because you couldn't make it work. So they tried to make it a big musical. And the reason they didn't stop and just change things, Morris wanted out of the show, and he took Patsy and I out to dinner one night, and he said, I want you to know that I've asked to be released from my contract. And he said, because the show's not about me, it's about you. And he was very, very sweet about it. And we said, well, I don't know, what do I know about this, And but they wouldn't let him out because they had so many women's clubs signed up for,
because they wanted to see Morris Evans in
charity. Well, all these charity groups coming
Yes.
in. So they had 3 months of solid ticket sales, and they knew that if they took him off the title, they could take their money back. If you take the star off the title,
right,
any of the groups that have bought tickets can get their money back.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize
So they didn't want to take that chance, and that killed the show.
Now, you said it ran for 1 year.
Well, we opened in the 17th of October. We closed in May, I think it was. And then we went to Vegas, and they changed the show around.
Right.
All the girls, you got lots of girls and whores and everything, and, bawdy songs. And I was the star, and every night I sang the entire score twice with no break. I mean, not a 6 weeks without a break.
Wow.
I lost my voice, needless to say.
Yes, I can imagine.
And it was really tough. And then they didn't tell us that in Vegas, the orchestra, of course, they don't work 7 nights a week. They work 6 nights a week.
Yes.
They have what they call a swing orchestra that comes in on Mondays. But they didn't tell us that. So I'm out there for the first number, and the tempo is just like, it's just, nothing is the same, and I'm trying to do Picture of Happiness and this dancing and all this stuff, and you're trying to, it's the picture of happiness. And looking off the stage at the stage manager, and I finally came up and I said, Ruth, what's going on? What's wrong with the orchestra? She says, oh, it's the swing orchestra. I said, what swing orchestra?
They hadn't even told you.
No, they didn't tell us, and there was no rehearsal with them.
Oh, my God.
The guy had come in who was conducting them. He went around and did swing orchestra every night at a different place. And he would come in and listen, I guess, the night before and make some notes and then come in and direct a new orchestra. Well, that was no fun.
Now, even despite the fact that it didn't have a long run, I don't know if they've changed the book from recently or whether they've gone back to it. But it did get you a Tony nomination,
yes.
And you did win a Theatre World Award for the role as well, didn't you?
So I'll show it to you.
Okay, super. So certainly
yes.
very good for you for your career.
Then I was offered immediately. I was offered 2 shows. One was All American, co-starred with Ray Bolger and directed by Josh Logan, and Ed Padula was the producer. He had done Bye Bye Birdie, and Strauss and Adams, who had done Bye Bye Birdie, were writing the score. And the other show I was offered was called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Of course.
They wanted me to play the hero, the boy. And but my agent said to me, he said, it's Hal Prince again. He said, you've done 2 shows with George Abbott and Hal Prince, and it's the same one. He said, you need someone else. And gosh, Josh Logan, you've never worked with him, and he's a brilliant director, and you'll have Ray Bolger as a co-star. And he said, I'll never forget this, he said, it's at the Winter Garden Theater. And he said, do you know how big your name is going to look on the Winter Garden Theater? It'll stretch from 52nd to 53rd, And I said, and I don't know. And then he said, the best thing he said was, and beside, he said, Stephen Sondheim, he writes good lyrics, but he can't write a tune for anything. He said he writes terrible scores. You know.
Oh, this is stuff of history. This story, isn't it?
Is that a good story?
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, if you say so. So I had the 2 scores, and I didn't have a second act for Funny Thing Happened at the Forum. They hadn't finished that.
Right.
So I only was reading the first act, and I liked the lyrics, and I saw a lot of comedy stuff that I could do, you know.
Yes.
But Zero Mostel was the star, and he was known as kind of Peck's bad boy at the time.
Right.
Because he would play around, you know, he was always, if he felt like it, he'd do something different, you know.
Right.
But he was brilliant, you know.
Yes.
And Ray Bolger was, if you go back in history, the longest running hit show up until, let's see, no,
Where's Charlie?
The most popular star, I guess it was Ray Bolger in By Jupiter.
Oh, yes.
The only reason By Jupiter closed was because it was in 1943, and he finally decided he was going to go into the war effort. And so they closed the show. So, and everybody knew him, and I said, well, that'll be fun, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that was no fun at all. It was the worst. I mean, his ego was larger than the Winter Garden Theater.
Now, I've heard the original, because in the interview that Musical Talk did with Charles Strauss, they said that the original choice for that role was
Ron Moody. Yeah.
Moody.
Anybody would have been better.
And he said that, I think he said that the problem is that Ray Bolger wanted to do his version of the character or things to that.
He wanted to do the Tin Man.
Oh,
the Straw Man,
Scarecrow.
The Scarecrow. So everything, he changed the whole story, and finally everybody's numbers started disappearing.
Oh, really?
I had a number with Anita Gillette in the beginning called Animal Attraction, and it is on the album.
Yes,
But
I have the album. So
opening night, unfortunately, in Philadelphia, it stopped the show cold.
Right.
The next day, guess what was cut first?
Oh, he was one of those people.
One of those people.
Yes, there's kind
and
of
he said,
few.
Ron, it just can't be. It's just not that good a number, and it interrupts the play. And he had all kinds of reasons why it should be cut.
That's so sad when people...
So bad?
So
I'm
bad.
going to tell you, it was the worst 3 months of my life. And we would have to stand on the stage because at the end of the show, he remembered that he had made Once in Love with Amy so popular in Where's Charlie? And when he had the audience sing along.
No, he didn't do it.
Yes.
Really? Oh, my God.
And here we had a show that everybody hated. You could watch the audience as we got to the second act, and the men in the front row were sliding down in their seats. Couldn't wait to get out and had their coats in their laps and were ready to go. And then he would stop at the bows, and our hands... I remember Anita Gillette and our hands where we had sweat dripping off of them. And we all had to stand there and smile. And he said, is this not a great score? And what a country this is. And we have such a great song. I want you to join me singing it. And so he would go out in the aisle and say, what a country, what a country, what a country, what a country. And the audience would... I want to get out of here. You know?
Oh, my goodness.
And we had to stand there. One night I fainted on stage. It was just too much to do. I could not do
Lord.
that. You know?
I mean, it's because the book was written by Mel Brooks, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Mel's funny, but they all hated each other, you know.
Oh, right.
Not really. Nobody hates Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks was funny and wonderful. And he and Charles Strauss and Lee Adams would sit at the piano, and we were laughing so hard. I mean, I never laughed so hard in rehearsals as I did in rehearsals of that show. But Ray was just miserable the whole time. Oh. And his wife was not allowed to be in the theater during rehearsal because she had taken over Where's Charlie, taken over direction, and she was the one who got everybody to sing along, or, you know, introduced that, and Frank Lesser hated her, and everybody hated her, and so Josh Logan had it put in the contract that she was not allowed in the show except for performances. So they would go home at night after the performance, and then she was in his ear all night, and he would come in the morning just miserable, and then everybody had to tiptoe around him while Josh tried to make him happy about his role and give him another dance number, and you know,
oh,
and
no.
they were all the same numbers.
I shall listen to it I shall listen to it with renewed interest now.
Interest. Because, you know, and I don't mind saying they're dead. I don't care, you know, but it's true.
So Charles isn't.
It's true.
So,
you know.
yes.
No, not Charles. I mean, everybody was nice, except you had to deal with Ray Bolger, you know.
No, the interesting thing is I know that the lesser estate, they won't, just to go off on a little tangent, but they apparently hate Where's Charlie, don't they? Oh, no, not the, yes, the lesser estate. It was his wife.
Yeah.
His wife? They don't like it, but I've heard that there may be a chance they release the film.
Oh, really?
Now, I was lucky enough to do Where's Charlie in Summer Stock.
Show.
It's a great show. They won't let it be done in England for some reason. It was done with Norman Wisdom, which is the only recording you can get. But for some reason they won't. They tried to get a revival a few years ago to get a revival of Where's Charlie, but for some reason it wouldn't be allowed. But there is a chance that the film, which is never seen apparently, could be released in the future. Anyway, I went off on one of my weird tangents. But that's fascinating about the whole All-American. I think you probably would have had fun with Ron Mooney.
Well, I know he would have been a great actor. You know, actor. It's always good to work with really good people.
Yes.
It's never good to work with bad people. I mean, some people think, oh, if you want to be a star, get everybody bad around you. Well, that's not true. You get good people. You
Surely,
better.
yes, exactly. And
You know?
if you end up having those people that cut songs because you're getting more laughs than them or
Right,
something.
that's horrible.
Yes, yeah.
And, for example, Bob Goulet and Howard Presnell and I and John Davidson, all four of us opened the same year approximately on Broadway.
Oh, wow.
It was 1959-60, right in there.
Yes.
And so we were always kind of sort of up for the same roles, but not really because we were all so different, you know. Bob was older, and so was Harv. And John Davidson then went into television more, and so he wasn't really around Broadway that much. But Bob was always very nice to me, and as a matter of fact, sent both of his boys to study with me when I was teaching after I lost my voice. And then every year we got a Christmas card from him, and, you know, he was very, and he's in my series.
Oh, yes, the Broadway history.
History of the Musical Theater. You'll take that home and you can look at it.
Oh, thank you very much.
It tells you all. I mean, I interviewed everybody.
Yeah.
You know. How do you do Broadway? You know,
well, there was the Julie Andrews one a few years back, but that was very concise.
Mine was longer.
Yours is 10 hours.
21.5 hours.
Fantastic. That's exactly the sort of thing that I love.
Yeah, well, what happened was when I started teaching after I lost my voice, I was teaching at Cal State LA, which it's not exactly a musical, a Broadway kind of audience. They're mainly Hispanic and Asian kids, so they don't have a background of Broadway. This is just not in their background. Mm-hmm. But I decided that I would teach a class on musical theater, acting in and history of. So I started with the history of. And as I was, taking attendance the first day and kind of getting things organized, I just casually said, well, who can tell me where do you think Broadway started, or what is your impression of when did it first happen, or whatever? And somebody said, well, didn't it start with hair?
Oh my goodness!
I thought, oh boy, I'm in serious trouble. I mean, I almost said, no, that's the end of Broadway. That's not the beginning. You've turned it around. Hit the other key, whatever.
That's very funny. That's brilliant.
Well, anyway, so that was when I knew, okay, I got to do something. So in 2 years, I took a sabbatical for a year and a half, and with no money at all, we schlepped around New York in terrible old hotels. But I called on everybody, and it was really Hal Prince who got on my board, and I'm sure he called everybody.
Right.
Hal just did that.
Yeah.
And so I got everybody, including Sondheim and all those, and that's a tough interview.
Yes, I can imagine.
You want a tough interview. And I thought it was me until I got the book on Sondheim's biography. I forget now who wrote it, but he speaks about everybody says when you interview Sondheim, he hates to be interviewed, and he looks all around the room and he's like sweating and doesn't want to talk, and he talks real fast and acts like he's looking at his watch all the time, and you feel like, oh, I'm saying all the wrong things, or he thinks I'm stupid or something. And so I felt that way until I read that book, and then I thought, oh, okay, I'm just like everybody else.
Oh, right,
You know,
yes, okay.
it's just real hard to cut. You'll see me sweating. He made a lot of cuts because I just couldn't get a thread anywhere, you know,
Oh, that's
to
funny.
hold together. It was
interesting.
really a tough interview.
Fantastic.
But so anyway, All American was such a horrible experience. I mean, a really horrible experience. And then I got the Oldsmobile show with Florence Henderson. We introduced cars and went around the country, and so Patsy was with me, and we had Mark, our oldest, was born, and so we played the Mark Hellinger in New York. We opened in Detroit. We played in Atlanta, Kansas City.
Now, can I just get this? This is right, because I know that there's a history and of musical writers. They write, and this has been covered in this podcast, I believe, before, by Thos Ribbits. And it is that many times musical collaborators would be commissioned to write musicals for big companies like Ford, and
Well,
was this
that's what this is. What
perfect.
they did
I
was
thought
they
it might-
don't commission them to write it. They got the rights to On the Town, to Wonderful Town.
Oh, I
Okay,
see, right.
So then they take Wonderful Town and they work in, instead of a publisher, I wasn't a publisher, and Florence was the older sister, you know, and then there was Eileen, who's darling Eileen, you know,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But I was an Oldsmobile dealer.
Oh, I see.
And we traveled
So
in
they-
17 cars, and there were reveals in the middle of these. I mean, I can't.
So it was all product placement. It was all kind of so
They took a story, and then they sort of. I mean, such interesting people live on Christopher Street. That was in, you know, but then it was Oldsmobile 98, top of the line, and da 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 da. Oldsmobile, da da da, you know. And so they used to travel with these shows. So. And they paid a lot of money. And we had hotel rooms. Everything was taken care of. It was really fun. And it brought us out to California. And so I was out here. I did go back and do Irma with Juliet, which I did
Irma Deuce.
Irma Deuce, on and off for 20 years. We played every theater in the country, practically.
Wow. Gosh.
But then I got on the Steve Allen show. And what's your
He
name?
was a comedian, is that correct?
Yeah, well, you don't...
We don't know him in England.
Okay.
I know him because
Steve Allen was the one who
and
invented The Tonight Show.
Edie Gourmet, is that right?
Yeah. Edie Gourmet and her husband, Steve Lawrence.
Steve Lawrence.
Were the first singing couple.
Oh,
on
right,
there.
okay.
And they were regulars on there. And then when they left, somebody else came in. And then I was hired. We were in the last year of the show. Anyway, I was a regular on the Steve Allen show. And then I hurt my back. Irma Deuce in one of the productions. At the same time, I was doing Camelot all over with Howard Keel, and I did it with Howard Keel and John Carradine. Now, John Carradine is another one of those actors you cherish every moment you ever had with him on stage. He could get a laugh out of it. And also Victor Buono, he played Pellinor too.
Right.
And he was really funny and inventive. I mean, when he came out, he was covered with, he had pans hanging from him and just everything, so that, you know, he was a walking camp.
Right.
You know. And he
I
was
think in the film version it's Lionel Jeffries, who's quite a an English
But
actor.
John Carradine, okay, this is a good story. John Carradine is down there before I make my entrance, you know. Lancelot doesn't come in until like 45 minutes into the show, and they've done It's May and all that stuff, and then John Carradine comes on as Pellinor, and he comes in and joins the circus or whatever, you know, and he's down there, and he comes with the dog. You know?
Yes.
Now, I'm at the top of the stairs. We're in Salt Lake, and it's a theater in the Round, and I'm wearing all the armor and everything, and this robe that's, I think it was blue velvet on the outside and white velvet on the inside, and as long as from here to that wall. So, you know, when I walked, it was just elegant, you know, whatever, coming down the aisle. Now, you try to be when you're in the round, you're exposed before you want to get on stage. You know, you're sort of in the back, this circular area, and so you stay sort of quiet and you just listen for your cue, but you sort of turn away from the stage as much as you can and try not to draw any attention to yourself, you know.
Yes.
So I'm not looking, but I thought, boy, he's getting laughs tonight like crazy. I'm wondering what's going on, you know, but I didn't turn it look because he always got great laughs, you know. And John Carradine was the funniest. I mean, he was a brilliant actor. So I turn and I start and I go down the stair, down this long ramp, and as I'm about halfway down, I notice, now how can I say this on British air, the dog had relieved himself right at the entrance to the stage. And it was a big sheepdog. There was a pile of yellow you-know-what on the stage. Right,
and you've got a huge train.
Right as I'm walking into it. Now, I'm coming down this, and I see this, and I go, oh dear, what am I going to do? So I got down there, and I just used this hand, and I pulled it back. Got the biggest laugh I've ever gotten in my life. Just one hand, I pulled my train over so it wouldn't get in the crap that was on the floor. Well, it was
fantastic.
I mean, the audience just screamed. The show stopped dead right there. You know, we all just stood there, and we could not go on. We could not go on. The audience laughed and laughed and laughed so hard because they were waiting for what was somebody going to do to get that cleaned up. And then finally, when the scene was over, the lights were out, the kids run down with the scoops and get it all cleaned up. And that got a laugh too. But I mean,
that's
dear.
wonderful.
Well, you know, you
magic
don't think
of
about,
theatre.
you have no thought of what you're going to do until you're halfway down the aisle and you see it, you know.
Yes.
And you must not react, you know, how am I going to stay in character and get around this, you know. So just that one, and it was such a little motion. I mean, you know, this is not a big move. I didn't do anything wrong here. I just moved the cape slightly so I didn't go through it. And oh, gosh, but John was really funny to work with. He was terrific. Anyway, I was doing all that, and I injured my back in Irma la Douce with Juliet. I got the flu, and it was a complicated role because you play two roles.
Oh, you were playing, yes.
And so I couldn't get back in the theater, and the replacement couldn't learn it in a day. I mean, it just wasn't possible. So Juliet called me and said, Ron, please come. It's in West Covina, and I'm living in North Hollywood. And she said, just come, and she said, we'll just do the dialogue, no lifts, no dances, no nothing. She said, if you just say the words so that we get through the play. So I said, okay. Now, I just stopped throwing up. I mean, the flu is not a one-day thing.
No.
You know, and so I'd only been out a day, and we talked the whole show down, and then we got on stage, and we get to Didon, which she does the big dance number around. And finally, at the end, we go, Didon, and I go, Didon, and she's supposed to run and jump into my arms, and I turn around and carry her up the aisle. Well, I forgot about that. And she looked at me with her eyes got big, and I thought, I can do this, you know. And I put my arms out, and she ran across the stage and jumped in my arms. And she's 6 foot tall, you know.
Oh.
She's not heavy, I mean, but a 6 foot tall woman weighs enough when she's running full force and jumps into your arms.
And you got a bad back in the flu.
My back, well, I had no muscle tone. I crashed down 3 flights of, you know, the donuts in the stage. The stage is like 3 donuts piled on top of each other, and crashed down and hit 4 rows of chairs. And she turned around and grabbed me under the arms, and she dragged me up the aisle, and they laid me out. And I was paralyzed from my shoulders to my hips. Couldn't move. They got me vertical. I did the rest of the show, got in a Volkswagen Bug, and drove to North Hollywood, and I could hardly get out of the car. The next morning, I'm in bed, and I'm paralyzed. I'm absolutely paralyzed, and I cannot move. And Patsy had to get Mark to kindergarten, and he wouldn't cross the street by himself. So she said, Ron, you got to get out of bed and get in, because he's going to be late for school, and Andy's in the high chair, and he's got jelly down the front of it. So I'm trying to get out of bed, and I can't. So I reached over, and our bedroom was right next to the kitchen, and I grabbed the handle of the door with the strength of my arms, pulled myself and got vertical, went into the kitchen, grabbed Andy so he wouldn't fall. He was only less than a year old, and then slid him down my body with jelly all over me, coming down. And I was like that for 3 months, and then finally had to have back surgery.
Oh,
and then
my goodness.
Every 15 years, I've had 7 back surgeries, and I now have titanium rods in my back, and, pain.
Gosh.
I have a electronic pain thing where they have wires and all
wow.
that stuff. So then I did a lot of soap operas because I had to heal. I couldn't do theater very well,
Yes,
I couldn't
yes.
dance. So I did General Hospital, which was a horrible experience. I'm not going to go into that.
Okay.
Oh, that was a month. And they asked me to do the pilot for Days of Our Lives, and I said, I'll do the pilot, but I'm not going to do the show. They said, I did not go to Northwestern and study and all this to do a soap opera. I hate them.
Yeah.
So I did the pilot. The pilot sold, and they wanted me to do it, and I said, no, I won't do it. I was able to do the pilot, but there's no act, in a soap opera, you just stand there and say lines,
Yeah.
and try to memorize garbage. And so finally, they called me again because they weren't happy with the guy that they ultimately signed for my role. And I said, okay, I'll do it, but 9 months is the longest I'll do it. But you have to write out. 2 weeks before my 9 months was up, Julie Stein called, and he had Leslie Uggams signed for
Hallelujah, baby.
Hallelujah, Baby. He wanted me to play opposite her. And so I said, I've got 2 weeks left on the soap. And he says, well, we go into rehearsal next week. And I said, well, let me see what I can do. And so I went to NBC, and I had a good friend who was an executive in NBC and over in Burbank, and he said, they came back and said, oh no, we have big plans for your role and all that stuff. We can't possibly cut you out.
Oh.
And so I had to turn it down. And 2 weeks from that day was the end of my contract. And at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a delivery boy drives up with my contract, and I'm canceled. Murder? Would I like to murder them? Yes. Oh, terrible. Then in New York, I did Search for Tomorrow for 9 months while I was doing On the Town at night. I did, and we were in Boston, and I was calling in the parts, some of it on the phone, or I would take the plane at 7 o'clock from Boston to LaGuardia, and then go up 57th Street to CBS,
goodness.
do the show, get on the 3:30 or was for Boston, get my notes from Joe Layton or Ron Field it was, and then do the show that night, get to bed, get up at 6, catch the next plane the next day, and get...
People worked, it was amazing the way that people worked. I don't know if you've heard Elaine Stritch's one-woman show,
No.
the recording, in which she talks about when she was doing Call Me Madam. She was
Oh,
understudying
yes.
Merman
And she was out of town.
and doing Pal Joey in Out of
Yes.
Town. And she was commuting between the two, so she'd wait for the call, make sure that Ethel Merman was not sick, and she was going on, and then she'd catch the train to do her, and just get there at the theatre. I'm sure.
I did the same thing we were at St. Louis Muni. We were rehearsing that, and I was doing Showboat at night in Houston.
Yes.
So I would do the same thing. I'd do the show in Houston, go to bed, get up at 6, catch the flight to St. Louis. They'd pick me up at 9 o'clock. I'd rehearse all day. 5 o'clock, I'd get on a plane for Houston, fly back to Houston and do the show. For a week, I did that. That was fun, that was always happening. This was constant, It never ceased. You'd get at one part, and then another one would come along,
Yes.
And so,
I'd like to go back a little bit to Can. Was it?
I was in the revival. That was the last thing I did in 81.
It was in 81?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And it was with Zizi Jean-Maire. And the only problem with it was that she spoke English phonetically.
Oh, right. So she didn't actually understand what she was saying. She just spoke the words.
We did. They would tell me, okay, Ron, go over and run the first scene with her, where she's sitting at the table, and she knows I'm the judge, and I'm trying to pretend I'm not the judge, and whatever. And you have a lot of acting to do,
Yeah, yes.
Well, she has this terrible French accent that is so heady that you can't tell what she's saying. And her first line is, "What is it? Is there a fire?" They lift her up in behind the bar. And I'm not kidding you, this is what it sounded like. "What is it? Is there a fire?"
Oh my
and the
God.
audience went, you know, it was, and that's the way the show went.
Oh.
And it was a gorgeous looking show. It was just beautiful. And actually she was good, and she would have been better, but she just couldn't act and say the words because they didn't mean anything to her.
Right.
She didn't know where the accent was in the words.
Because it's the revivals of it have never been. Well, how was it
Well, and
successful?
it's not much of a play. You gotta have, first of all, the comedy doesn't work at all anymore.
Right.
The stuff that
It was
Hans
very-
Conried
right.
did was very period.
Right.
And so they had to rewrite it. Avery Schreiber was doing it, but he wasn't really a stage actor. He's a television actor, you know.
Right,
He was.
yes.
And it wasn't his fault, really, because there wasn't anything funny to say.
Right. Yeah.
The three comic, you know, never be an artist, and it's kind of a bad song. you
Right.
know.
So it's
And
kind of there's a. I mean, they
It just
tried
drops
to do
dead
it.
with this whole second story drops dead in there. It needs
Yeah.
rewriting, and we got into 2 weeks of rehearsal, and it was Guys and Dolls directed.
Ed Burrows.
We discovered he had Alzheimer's.
Oh, you're kidding! Oh no.
And now we're 2 weeks into rehearsal. We have 2 weeks left. We don't have a director because he would stand there with his head down, and we'd stand there. And finally, I remember the first day of rehearsal, I said, "Well, I have the first line. Should I come in this door here?" And he said, "Yeah, that'd be good." And then you get on stage. You say, "Well," Zizi would say, "Well, shall I sit here?" And yes, yeah. And then I'd say, "Well, should I go over there?" You know, that's where we staged
Oh
it.
my God.
And
And
so
for someone
now we're
like
in
that, who's Abe
real-
Burrows, who was
famous, world famous.
Guys and Dolls, How to
you know,
Succeed in Business.
all of
I
that
mean,
stuff.
all
And
of it.
nobody knew because it was early on, but it was.
Oh, that's
there.
terribly sad.
It was really sad. And we had the most gorgeous sets, and Zizi's husband, Roland Petit, took over direction. Well, he's a ballet director, you know, and so he knows dance, and he had
Yeah.
these beautiful, tall French girls they were all 6 feet tall, and the clothes were all made in Paris, and it was gloriously to look at. And Freddie Witta did the set?
Oh, Avery Schreiber was in it. Now,
Yeah.
could you just
Let's see, the
Sven
set.
Svensson,
I'm looking for the set.
scenery, David Mitchell.
Oh, David Mitchell.
Yes.
The most gorgeous set you've ever seen. He had a rooftop for I Love Paris, and it was in the back. And as she walked and started to sing, the rooftop moved forward, and behind her, they had a reflection, little silver things down there that reflected like the water. And up came the 5-story turn-of-the-century houses that line the Seine, you know?
Yes.
And so you had this feeling you were going back in a helicopter or something. It was the most gorgeous thing, and to listen to I Love Paris, it was so beautiful, and there were so many, but the comedy scenes just put right in the toilet. It was just so bad, you know.
It had a very bad production in England with Milo O'Shea, I think it was, in the late 80s, early 90s.
Oh yeah, well,
and it
the
just
script
didn't
just
really do.
isn't there.
It isn't. Yeah.
It isn't there.
Maybe they need to go to the original film again or something.
But it was too bad because it lasted 7 days, you know, and all that work and all those sets at the Minskoff, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It was
just 7 days. And
yeah.
Now,
I mean, it was terrible, you know, awful thing. Now the really good thing at the Minskoff and the best thing for last was Irene, because first of all I didn't get it. What's his name? I can't say his name. It's on the album.
so Irene came about because they
Because-
did No No Nanette,
No,
and
No
it was
Nanette,
a
and it
huge
was-
success with.
And with a movie star, you know. And so they went out and they talked to the Gower Champion to direct it, and they got Debbie Reynolds. And so she decided that she wanted to make sure she had classy direction. And when they didn't have Gower Champion, they had Sir John Gielgud.
Oh yes.
Now, Sir John Gielgud, my goodness, that sounds classy, doesn't it? Well, that sounds classy to Debbie. And that was her only mistake, is that he had never directed a musical before. He did not know how to get a number. If they're going to change a number in the show, how do you get that number into the show that night? In other words, how do you make that switch?
Right, quickly and happen.
And how do you rehearse that in the afternoon so that it goes in? He could never do that. And so they could never get the stuff in there. And Monty Markham was the guy that was playing opposite her. So he got the role over me. It was between the two of us, and he looked older. So that was really the basic difference there. He looked the right age to play opposite her, and she's got 5-6 years on me, and
Okay.
it showed.
It showed, yeah.
I was young. And, I always looked young, it was, in fact, here you can see, I had to put on this mustache to play opposite her.
I have to just say, I'm looking at this the most amazing wall at the moment
You see how
of
young I look there? It just, and Gower
Photographs.
came back and said, anyway, what happened was, they didn't get along. This was common knowledge, and he thought he was playing, I guess, Shakespeare or something, and it was Irene. This is
light.
You have to know how to play
traditional,
farce.
yes.
Play farce, and so we had brilliant farce people here. We had Sir George Irving, who was one of the greatest actors
yes,
ever worked with.
astounding
in my life.
man. So.
Ruth Warwick, who's the funniest lady in the
Yes.
world. Patsy Kelly, who's hysterical. And then we had beautiful costumes by Irene Sheriff and Raoul Penny Dubois. And David Siegel did the costumes. Peter Gennaro did the dances. But they could never get anything into the show, and they couldn't get it right. And it started out with Monty Markham having 5 songs. Well, he didn't sing that well, and so they kept cutting the songs.
Yes.
And not for any other reason, but anyway, and they just didn't get along, period. It just was like chemistry wasn't there,
Right.
So a month after they opened, they called me and said, would you please come in and replace Monty Markham? So I did 2.5 years.
Wow. Now was this still with John Gielgud directing, or was he gone by then?
I didn't tell you.
Because I have a little story, and I don't know if
the story.
it's probably the same one I was going to ask you.
He was not there a lot.
Right.
Turn that off.
I'm sorry, musical talk people.
Sadly, I had to switch off the recording while Ron told me the John Gielgud anecdote. All I can say, though, is that it was rather a good one, and I shall just have to leave it up to your imagination.
So anyway, Gower Champion comes in because Debbie knows him, and she calls him and says, please come and help us. We're in Detroit, and we're flop, and we got to fix this. So he came in and he said, well, the big problem is that they put Debbie right between two of the greatest dancers on Broadway, Janie Sell and Carmen Alvarez. And while Debbie's a really good dancer, these two dance like, it's like Cheetah Rivera and Gwen Verdon or something. You just don't do that. So they brought the men in and put the men next to her and put the other two girls on the end.
Right.
And they did that through the whole thing. They hadn't focused the show on Debbie Reynolds.
Which you need to
Which
for
you
Irene.
need to do. You need to do that,
Now, sorry, I remember a story I've read. I don't know how true this is, but there was a story that
It's true, but go ahead.
that Debbie Reynolds lost her voice in one show, and John Gielgud, rather than
I don't know
stop
this.
the show, she went on, mouthed the words, and John Gielgud read from the script from the wings.
I don't know. That must have happened in Detroit or something.
Which is just the funniest thing. I mean, Debbie
That's
Reynolds
just
on
gotta be
stage
horrible.
speaking with John Gielgud.
No, that's got to be over. Anyway.
I don't know how true that is, but it's a great story. So.
Anyway, so Gower came in and he just reshaped the whole thing, and then he let the people play farce who played farce, and these are great farce players with, and they all knew that you had to be in certain positions and we made stuff work. Well, anyway, they brought me in, and I stood in the back and I watched, and I saw when Monty Markham came in, I didn't notice him for about a minute or two that he was on stage. And when he left, I didn't notice he had left.
Oh gosh, that's not good.
Well, you know what I mean? It's like he was playing theater.
Right.
You don't play farce like theater. You play farce in a different style. And it depends greatly on positioning, on reading, about how you play with everybody, how you stay in the character and believe it. You have to believe Forrest heavily. You really must believe what you're doing. And he just didn't know that. He was a good television star, and I guess he's a very nice guy, and I just watched him, and I saw what was wrong. And so I came in, and my job was to do this to Debbie, and I did this, and it started to work. And pretty soon, the whole show was doing that. We got standing ovations every single performance the last year that we were playing. It was just incredible. It was the best time I ever had in my life on stage, because Debbie's so funny, and everybody knew how to play the roles. Ted Pugh was playing in it.
Yes.
And they were all really good actors, and Patsy Kelly was good. She was just hysterically funny. And it was just a brilliant show. It was an absolutely brilliantly put together show. And then she left, and Harry Rigby brought in Jane Powell. How should I say this? Well, Jane was never in the same place. It's very hard to, all of a sudden she would be wandering across the stage, standing in front of you. I don't care if she stands in front of me, but the audience gets very nervous when somebody stands in front of somebody else.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like pointing a gun at the audience. You just don't do that, because they can't stand it. They just can't. So it kind of fell apart. And then Hans Conried came in, and he had had a stroke, so he could never get his line out on time. You know what I mean? There was always a...
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, and then the line would come, and then there'd be a... And so the comedy of the thing started to go, And,
now, tell me, because Gower Champion, he's...
Oh, and then Gower came back to me and he said, Ron, I got to do something. You look too young. He said, you look too young to play opposite her. What are we going to do? And I said, wait a minute. I went back and I got a mustache out of my thing, put on the mustache, grayed my hair a little bit, grayed the mustache, and came out, and I said, stand over there, and I'll look at him, and he says, perfect. So
marvelous.
That's what we did.
Now his reputation though was...
He was terrific.
It was it? No, who am I thinking of then? I'm thinking of who? Oh, I'm thinking of David Merrick.
Oh yeah.
Who had huge reputation for being very, very difficult and crazy.
And,
so I'm getting the two mixed up, which is terrible.
Yeah,
so,
and that was when 42nd Street, when Gower died, opening night.
That's right. That's why I'm getting the two mixed up. That's why.
Gower was terrific, and Peter Gennaro, we had worked with in Fiorillo.
And can we talk a little bit about Lovely Ladies, Kind Gentlemen, which is the musical version of Tea House of the August Moon, which was it was made into a film. It was a book to begin with, I believe. Is that correct?
And I played the film part that was Glenn Ford.
Glenn Ford, and Marlon Brando played the
Kenneth Nelson.
Kenneth Nelson played the Marlon Brando role.
Zucchini. And we were picketed by the Asian American actors because we had
using Caucasians
to
play
Asians. Eyepieces on all that stuff. But you see, the problem is you can have some Asians and you can have some Caucasians, but you can't have a full. It's like doing Showboat. You got to have a black chorus and you got to have a white chorus. So you got to have a double chorus, So they were trying to get by with a one chorus that played soldiers sometimes. There were Asians, dressed in.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because it's a big chorus. I mean, there's a
lot of stuff. You got all the people in Okinawa, and then you got the GIs.
So now, because on YouTube, if any listeners are interested, on YouTube, I discovered someone has posted about 40 minutes worth of the musical numbers, which I don't think you knew about until today, which I'm so pleased that
I knew there was
something about that.
2 numbers on there, but I didn't know the whole stuff that was on there.
But it's and it's great to look at something, certainly, and this is a forgotten musical. There is a rumor there is supposedly a cast recording being done with Lou Diamond Phillips. But I don't think it's. He's a movie actor who did. Well, he did King and I about 10 years ago now. But apparently, now it was written by Stan Freeman and Franklin Underwood. Now, what did they? Did
Well,
they
didn't
do
do anything since then. That was the end of their. And John, and the book is by
John Patrick.
John Patrick.
I've never heard of these people,
Well,
and
John
it's
Patrick did. Oh, he did a lot of plays back in the 40s. I never lose the lyrics live in my house.
Pins and Needles.
Yeah, Pins and Needles. Yeah.
Ah, right.
So, but they did another show. Yeah, he's done lots of. Well, just look him up. Google him.
I will.
You'll see
John
what
Patrick.
Yeah. But what happened was we had Herman Levin, and we opened in Philadelphia. We got really terrible reviews. So we have 3 weeks in Philadelphia, and then we're coming out to Los Angeles, where we have 7 weeks at the Dorothy Chandler, and we go 7 weeks or 6 weeks up to the Curran up in San Francisco, and then we come to New York at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. So we started rehearsals on the 4th of July, so this is a long period. We get to Philadelphia, and we get terribly stinking reviews, absolutely awful. And
Isn't that normal for Philadelphia? I've
well,
heard?
no, they knew they had to fix it. So they rewrote the first act of the show, but we could only get the first act in, not the second act. They rewrote the show, but they could only get the first act. So in Los Angeles, we opened with the new first act and the old second act, which of course didn't work at all.
Oh,
then
right.
we put in the new second act, and we had the new first act and the new second act, and we opened in San Francisco and got even worse reviews.
Oh.
And so then they said, okay, we've got 7 weeks, we're going to rewrite the show. They brought in Ron Field. And so we had like directors forever. I mean, and everybody had an idea of what was wrong. So they fired, what's his name, who did Beverly Hillbillies. He produced it. Anyway, he got very rich. He was lucky he was fired. And they brought in David Burns, who had the funniest number in the show. But anyway, Ron Field came in and they rewrote it. They decided to do it very 40s with Hubba Hubba, all that kind of stuff.
Right, the Andrews Sisters.
Yeah,
and,
a lot of that stuff. So we brought it in to New York, and that was right at the height. It was 1970. It was right at the height of the Vietnam stuff, And Clive Barnes gave it the worst review I think I've ever seen in my life, about
really?
Americanization of all anti-war stuff, and terrible. Anyway, and that wasn't what the play was about anyway. But it was, he couldn't see that. So we had 2 weeks.
It's about the opposite, isn't it?
We had 2 weeks. We opened a week before Christmas, and we closed New Year's Eve.
Oh.
Lots of fun.
Oh, my goodness.
And exhausted, exhausted cast.
And it's got some great numbers in it. I mean, it's
beautiful sets.
There's I assume it's the closer for Act 1 is Call Me Back.
Yeah.
Because it's got that wonderful reprise of the encore of the song, and I'm not going to do any spoilers, but if you get to watch it, if you love traditional, very traditional musical comedy, this is it's so well written. You can see it's happening if you know the story. You know what's going to happen.
And the audience, we had 5 numbers that stopped the show cold in New York every night.
And there's some. The performances were great, and. I loved it. I do hope one day they'll do a cast.
The last thing I ever heard from my agent, though, Bruce Saban in New York, and this was years after I lost my voice, he said, I've always wanted to ask you something. And I said, what was that? And this was like after I had taught, it was like in the 80s sometime. And he said, did you ever have a run-in with Herman Levin or something? And I said, oh, he never even talked to me much that I recall. I see him out in the house or something, but nothing much. And he said, well, he kept calling me and he wanted to fire you all the time. And I said, you're kidding. I said, I worked so hard in that show, and I sang well, and I was good in it,
Yeah.
And it's funny to learn that somebody was wanted to fire you,
Maybe he had somebody that he wanted to put in instead.
I have absolutely no idea.
How bizarre.
Here's the guy who produced My Fair Lady, should know something.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just hated me.
How bizarre.
Well,
strange.
You can't please everybody.
No, you can't. No.
You can't.
And if you're worried about pleasing everybody, which is...
that was the farthest thing from my mind. You know?
Exactly.
So,
well, I do hope there is... It would be very nice if something... it just made a little appearance even in musicals in Mufti. I think they do in New York or something. If it just did some sort of little revival or
one other story. You have to remember too. I'm always the one who doesn't get on the cast album for some reason. I only have Tenderloin, and the pictures for Fiorello were when I had left the show to go to Frank Lesser for 2 weeks, and the guy that replaced me for 2 weeks was there when they took the pictures for the program.
So you're
I'm not in the
funny.
pictures for the program.
Are you on the cast recording for Fiorello?
Yes.
Right.
You'll hear it. I say, when you got a pair of jacks, bet on.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Lovely.
But the other thing is,
Peter Marshall?
what?
What did you do with Peter Marshall?
Oh, I did Brigadoon with him.
Peter Marshall, I'm not familiar with Peter Marshall.
Well, he did Hollywood Squares, the television show.
Oh yeah, we had it Celebrity Squares. I think in England, but we didn't have because a lot of our we didn't really get a lot of those.
And On the Town, I replaced in Boston, and so they had a plastic thing on the Imperial Theater. A whole plastic, we get there, my name is not on it. How wonderful is that? So, and in all the cards, if you'll look, I did it myself.
I'm looking at a photograph.
Here's where they had my name, and there's where it was supposed to be.
Oh, that's funny.
So I cut it out and put it where it was supposed to be.
I'm looking at a poster for On the Town with Phyllis Newman and Bernadette Peters, and Ron he's cut his name and put it where it should be, which is underneath
It's
Phyllis
in the
Newman
contract.
and Bernadette Peters,
And
not
it's
on
in
the
the
also
program.
starring.
But-
Although the list of
others-
also starring is pretty impressive as well. So So.
But wouldn't you know? And I get there, and I wasn't even on the marquee. I'm not on the marquee. No place on the marquee. And I'm not on. We didn't do a recording because they took that money because we were not doing as good a business as we should have. And then later on, there was a review they redid On the Town about 20 years ago or something. And in there they said, there was a revival of this back in the 70s. And it was really good. At the time, nobody thought it was that good, but they were all great performers. And I thought, gee, now you say it. Thank you. Thanks for nothing.
And what is Look Where I'm At? I don't know that show.
That's called Panic. Panic when your show closes. When I had moved our family, 3 children, and Patsy, we got a place in White Plains. When we came east again with Lovely Ladies, Kind Gentlemen, and it closes New Year's Eve.
Yes.
Here we are, and I'm paying rent, and we've moved everything, lock, stock, and barrel from California. And so I get a call about 2 weeks later, and they say, we want you to start an off-Broadway show. It's Thorne Smith's Three Bagger. Remember, he was a writer back in the 40s, wrote comedy. They were sort of men's sort of stories, but it's about a guy who gets locked in a department store overnight, and all the dummies come to life.
Oh,
It's not One Touch of Venus.
No, but the Stephen Sondheim thing, Evening Primrose. No, that's not about dummies coming to life. That's about people who live in department stores after they close.
Yeah. So this is about coming to life. Okay. Anyway, I get locked in the thing. So I'm, of course, panicked, and they offer me this show, and I know the people in it. I know the musical conductor is an old friend of mine, and let's see, Arthur Bartow I knew, and Mary Bracken Phillips was with my agent, and anyway. So I thought, okay, great. It's over on 54th Street Theater, over by 9th Avenue. Off-Broadway thing.
Yes.
So I get the script, and it doesn't look too good, but I thought, well, I'm panicked now. I need a job bad. It's that horrible
Sometimes
thing. I'm never gonna
work.
work again.
Yeah.
I'm never going to work again. So I take the job. Well, it turns out that I'll leave the writers' names out of this, but the 2 of them would go home at night and smoke pot and write the script. And then they would come in the next day with this script. And we would all sit down and try to read the script, and it didn't make sense. It was not funny. It didn't track from page to page. You couldn't remember how what do I do? Why do I sing? What am I singing about here?
Yes.
What is it? And then they put a wig on me because it was all 70s, and they thought I was not 70s enough, so I had a a suit that was made of double knit, like material you'd cover a couch with or something, and this terrible wig. And it was, well, finally, one day at lunchtime, I left and said, I got an appointment. I'll be back about 5 minutes late. I ran to my agent's office to get out of it, to see what I could do to get out of it. And I walk in, and there's Mary Bracken Phillips doing. She says, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I think I'm doing the same thing you are." And she said, "Yeah, we got to get out of this thing."
That's brilliant. Oh my God! Did you get out of it?
No.
No.
We had to go on. We had a 3 opening night thing. We had to do 3 nights. And it closed, of course.
Yeah.
And the good thing about the only nice thing Clyde Barnes ever did for me, ever.
Yeah.
Well, he said, I'm not going to mention the actors because they don't deserve to be labeled with this show.
Oh, right.
So, but I put it up there anyway because it's, it just reminds you of whatever.
Yes. I suppose it reminds you of it's.
It reminds you of what panic will do to you.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
You will take anything. So, anyway, that's sort
wonderful.
of the history of my failure.
That one. Though it wasn't really a failure for you, though, was it? So.
And then I did a lot, television shows, and I did during the '60s. I did. Well, you'll see on that list. I did every television show in the world out here. Mel Brooks was writing for Get Smart at the time, and he wrote a role in there called Roger Hammerstein, and I played it.
Oh, how wonderful! That's great. That's good.
I was the murderer.
Oh.
Yeah.
It wasn't till much later that we started having American shows. Really,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
only the very big ones that
Yeah.
came over to England and Europe. Whereas there was a lot. Whereas I think Get Smart did come in. We had like The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, yeah.
And but I think Get Smart was kind of there, but not heavily.
Well, I did everything. 12 O'Clock High.
So-
I did the FBI. I did. Then I did lots of soaps. I did Search for Tomorrow in New York, and As the World Turns, and Love Is a Many Splendid Thing.
Thank you so much.
Lots and lots and lots of shows.
Yes.
You know.
Now, when you did Man of La Mancha, I noticed.
Oh, I did that in Fort Worth, and it's one of the best roles I ever did.
It's an amazing role. I mean,
I
it's
was
beautiful,
really good
beautiful.
at it. It made me mad because some of my best roles, that and South Pacific and Kismet, I didn't do in New York. You know what I mean? I didn't do them in places I was like in the hinterland, and yet they were my best performances. And it makes me crazy because.
And what would you say? Is it difficult to actually, if I ask you what or suddenly some of your favourite roles that you ever played?
Well, those.
Those.
Yeah, I would say La Mancha, and I love doing South Pacific. I love doing Irene. It was really fun. I love doing anything, really.
Yeah.
I just love being on stage, that was just the most fun.
Yes.
It's just fun. Television is fine, and it makes you a star, but that's not why you're an actor. I mean, it really isn't.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the bad part of it. And I had when I interviewed Kylie,
Yes.
I said, didn't Man of La Mancha just change you, And he said, yes. He said, you can't do that show and not come out of it changed. It's just a changing kind of role.
I've had that similar experience from playing Alfie, but
Yeah.
I mean, it just completely.
Yeah, there's something about La Mancha that is just, it's just so wonderful to play.
Yeah.
It is so wonderful to play when you screw in that sword that's twisted,
Yes.
And you have these wonderful moments, that you can act, and there's just too many great things, and that final exit, walking up that stairs to the...
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I mean, what
there's
a
just
finale!
There's nothing more fun,
Yeah,
Nothing
absolutely.
more fun. And South Pacific was the same for me. And the Desert Song.
And did you play Cable in South Pacific, or
No.
were you-
I played.
Um,
This is me with gray hair. See, I was.
oh right, yes, I was
always
because
very
I was
good
looking
with
at that
the
one, which is on the town, obviously.
Moustaches and gray hair.
Oh,
which
right.
were always,
Yes.
putting on. And
You
here
played
I grew
Emile.
my-
Emile?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Emile
Emile.
de Beck. Yeah.
Emile de Beck.
So I was always, switching and making myself. All my leading ladies, I played opposite every leading lady there is, but they were all older than me. See?
So you had to age up for
I
them.
had
and
to
so,
age up.
Yeah, so.
Now it wouldn't be so hard, except I don't have any hair. you
Although
know?
this picture of Debbie Reynolds looks like she's aging down as well. So.
Well, she looked great though.
She
you
looks
know.
fantastic. I
You
mean,
know.
she looks,
Andy
amazing.
just produced
Our
her.
son has produced her.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, he did say.
But this is what I
How
look
fantastic.
like in Irma La Douce, see?
Let us see. Yes.
I was, really young. That's young.
Yeah.
I didn't have a line on my face,
And I'm looking at pictures of Ron with Debbie Reynolds and Ethel Merman, Juliet Prowse. It's quite an amazing wall. Some fantastic stuff.
Anyway, that's about it.
Well, it's thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I mean, absolutely wonderful stories. And on behalf of Musical Talk, thank you very much. I could just listen to you for hours, and which I will do with my 21 hours of Broadway
Half hours.
history. Oh, 21 half hours.
Half hours.
Hours. So 10 hours total. This is, can we just do a quick link for this? Because I think there's a website where it's available, is that right? Can you still buy this?
Yeah, it's on here, the address.
The address. Okay, so what I will do is, this is
here it is, BroadwayHistory.net.
Broadway, www.broadwayhistory.net.
It's an interview series. You don't get to see Broadway shows because you can't get them, But
Yes, but that's I mean,
you interview, all these people are interviewed.
the list of people interviewed by Ron for this series is I'll just pick some random names here. We got George Abbott, Sheldon Hardneck, Florence Henderson, Celeste Holm, Tom Jones, John Kander, Larry Kurt, Michael Kidd, Richard Kiley, Arthur Lawrence, Josh Logan, Patti LuPone, Cameron McIntosh, Adolph Green, Alfred Drake, Barbara Cook. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah, that was interesting. Andrew Lloyd Webber, he had just moved into the Trump Tower, and he didn't just move into the Trump Tower, he moved into 2 floors of the Trump Tower. And they were putting in a solid brass railing for the staircase that went from the 69th floor to the 68th floor.
Oh my goodness, that's terrible when people have to slum it, isn't
I know.
it?
And the whole, you walked around the house and you could see the East River, the West, the Hudson River, the Central Park, and you could see all the way to the tip of Manhattan from every room. It was just incredible.
That's wonderful.
That was when he was still married to, what's her name?
Sarah Brightman?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
She was sitting drinking champagne in the kitchen talking to the decorator. So,
It'll have to go into the outtakes. Well, again, thank you very, very much. This has been an amazing interview, and yes, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Musical Talk.
My thanks again to Ron and his wife Patsy for their hospitality. If anyone is interested in the history of Broadway DVD set, then go to www.broadwayhistory.net. Broadway is with a capital B and history is with a capital H. Be warned, it is not cheap, but it is well worth every penny. Also, for those of you that are interested, there is some wonderful footage of lovely ladies, kind gentlemen on YouTube. There's about 45 to 50 minutes, and it was taken during the final performance, and you get a good look at most of the musical numbers. And if you don't know any of the shows mentioned, Tenderloin, Fiorello, I would heartily recommend searching them out. So it only remains for me to say thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Goodbye.
This episode of Musical Talk, presented and edited by Dom McChesney. Produced by Dom McChesney and Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2014. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter.